don't have this kind of confusion. If you remember, there was some scratching last time when we used to talk.
Yeah, man. I think there was
Scratching last time when we used
my
to talk.
mic's up, whatever. Like I'm using a different mic now, so hopefully I think there was it's all clear. But am I like audible to like everyone here? Because you guys sound good to me.
Okay, it seems that it does sound perfect right now, so I think it will be great. At least I can hear your voice really good on the stream.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Anyway, hello everyone. Well, today, for the first time in my life, I want to say to everyone how happy I am for a protection paladin who have finally done something that not any other player in this World of Warcraft classic would even imagine. And I would like to say congratulations Tareyak for doing the most impossible fight for the people and for successfully tanking 4 horsemen as a paladin tank. Congratulations, man. How's
Thanks,
that
bro.
feeling there?
To be honest, there's a feeling of kind of like yeah, like I don't think it's like fully set kicked in yet, kind of thing. Like the implications of it, because again, like we've seen that there's people who kind of like cast out no matter what. Um, but from my end, it's kind of like it's the culmination of almost like a group effort. Because like one thing I have to say is that like you say that like my end, it's like the quote unquote world first, but from your end, like you've done this before, like you've already been here. Like classic was almost like the victory lap for you, kind of thing. Um, especially when you see the difficulty compared to private servers. So like from the classic end, obviously like from like the way you went about it, or the way like things went about, and then with like you having to drop out and all this stuff, like it was almost kind of like a thing where like I was more than happy like to pick up the slack because like as seen in the video, like I have Thunder Fury and all that. Like I want to make sure I was set up for this fight in particular because I was seeing the forum posts, and it's like it's just like comment after comment after. It's like yeah, but no taunt though, no taunt though, no taunt. Where's that taunt? Do you know what I mean? And me and Meta obviously like we're always like kicking back and like we're having jokes about it. It's like there's no real fight where a main tank requires a taunt. It's usually an off tank that needs the taunt. But people will say no taunt, so he has to be an off tank. But the off tank needs a taunt for like Fire Maw and the Drakes and Black Miller and all that. So from our end, like my whole thing was like gearing up. So it's like threat is the to have to be able to out threat the warrior. Um, so it's like for me, it's like I'm just still doing the same thing. So it still feels the same. I mean, obviously the video and all that is like I knew I had to have the video purely just for the reason of it's like Killerduki like has like you can search this on Google, go back to the forum post. He has outlined even in those forum posts, like you have to do a bit of digging, but in those forum posts he outlines the exact strategy that I employed. Um, whereas I kind of just because I'm shocked and like I kind of went ultra like high in the trap because as you seen with the boss and all that, the warriors are going Fury Prot, so it's like fuck that. If they're going Fury Prot, like and protection warriors aren't even viable enough for threat holding, I need to kind of spice it up in terms of looking at kind of burst threat or kind of front loading threat or being able to kind of like do a high amount of raw threat output. Might have downtime from it. The blessings is kind of like a nice back from that, but the whole kind of idea is that like you're basically just going to out threat the warrior, the horse going back to you, and then your tactics, which you've already done on private service statuses, which will everyone will admit is much more difficult rating scenarios, or at least in the most popular ones. So it's like for me, it's kind of like I'm still doing the same thing, but like obviously the video kind of it makes it kind of like different because I have to like record now and all that. But yeah, like it's kind of just like to a lot of people this is going to be mind blowing, like seeing the footage of the Paladin going in and just literally like the water tank's just there and it just comes to me kind of thing. But like for you, like what I want to know from you, Killerduki, is like like how did you do on private servers? Like, because me and my build, like I've basically just I went holy shock and all that kind of thing. For me, like the fact that you've done on private servers, I think is more of an accomplishment.
All right. Well, on the private servers, unfortunately, I haven't done that because anytime I was trying to build up to be part of a raid team, to be a part of a guild, every time when it was about time to go to nags and finally successfully main tank nags in order to stream and record videos and everything for the people to see how things work, every time it screw up something with the server. So it's probably some kind of bad luck that I got. So let's say it's more of a personal bad luck within the any kind of servers. First was I was trying to do the things in very old server, private server, Phoenix, but
Hmm.
it collapsed. Nostalgius released. Okay, let's go for Nostalgius, giving another chance. Go for it. Boom, shut down again when it was about time for me to organize my own guild. Later a while Elysium, and then the corruption shenanigans and everything, and I never ever had this chance or opportunity, unfortunately, to show how things are. And I'm aware that the private servers have a shit tons of bugs and all those stuffs, but I'm, from what I have seen from the people who do those bosses in the private servers, it works similar, not the same, but similar. Let's say it doesn't reduce that much threat compared to classic, as from what I have seen on your video, but they still reduce the marks threats from the tanks. And in that scenario, if you have a proper and open mindset warrior tanks with unit groups, he can control over those stuff, especially if the healers sometimes step there closer, and they also need the reduction of the threat, so they don't over aggro the tank and don't cause a lot of more problems in that scenario. It is doable, as I already said, even before I created that video before classic release, and I have never done Four Horsemen in private servers because all my experience and everything I knew, all my knowledge was from vanilla original World of Warcraft back in 2005, back in 2006. That is from where I used to know everything and learn everything and to experience all those stuff. But unfortunately, back in the days, people were still working on some crap Pentium seller on computer, or even worse, not even dual cores. People used to play on dial-up DNS, dial-up connection from phone connection. I don't know what your generation does, but or if you are on my generation, it's still different. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a Metaluck, by the sounds of his internet, is probably still using dial-up as well. But yeah, no,
Oh
like
yeah.
dial-up was definitely the same thing.
so
Yeah, same here.
so basically it was impossible for you to upload, to record video, unless you are from some heavy rich country, or let's say 10% of the people who have the resources and able to do the recording and images and everything. So it was not only the knowledge how to work with computers, but it was also what are your capabilities were to work with those stuff. So unfortunately, I knew how to do things back in the days regarding computer uploading videos and stuff, but I was unable because my country economy is not like in France, it's not like in UK, so we didn't have those resources in order to promote stuff for people. You know, like today. Today is different story. Okay, even the crappiest computer you buy from the shop today is 100 times better than the ones we used to work or have back in the days. Yeah, so basically that was my whole knowledge. And when these private servers got nowadays on a meta, and when people was hating so much on the Paladins because such a mentality was formed back in, let's say, 2013 or something, when it was only Phoenix server, the private server, and this server had a lot of bugs. It was nearly impossible for someone to do anything as a Paladin, and you had no chance to tank even a 5 man before there. And because this server was old and so long time people was stuck in and struggling on those bugged abilities, bugged mechanics, they accepted it as a normal. Not like now, but they accepted that Paladins couldn't do anything or all those things. They believed it was true, which wasn't. Vanilla WoW was always different than the private servers, and will always will be. Regardless how good the private servers looks like, it will always be different. And then,
True.
yeah,
Because I mean, like even from the threat from blessings, like that was a huge kind of like shock to a lot of people, because I mean that in and of itself was proof that a paladin single target threat at least is king. Do you know what I mean? You can put a paladin in full, was a 440 defense cap gear, never get crit. Um, like whack the mitigation up to 80 or 90% or so, easy enough. While getting defensive cap, and then just sit there and put lay on hands on yourself, and get a holy paladin, put lay on hands on yourself, and you're always sitting at 75% reduction physical anyway. Do you know what I mean? So you're not only, and if you have 20 warriors in the raid, then you're looking at the scenario where you're doing more threat than a fury warrior,
yeah,
a fury prop warrior, and then you're more tankier. Well, you're not probably not as tanky, let's say, as the warrior, but whereas the warrior wouldn't reliably be able to get up, like a horde warrior wouldn't be able to get up to armor cap, whereas a paladin can. So where they have blast stand and they have shield wall, it's like, yeah, these are great cooldowns, and shield wall's 30 minutes, by the way, but and our lay on hands is 40 minutes. But like I was thinking of from the way of like, it's what Kevin Jordan said, it's like playing chess, we're not playing checkers kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like where the warrior has these defensive cooldowns to get out of a pinch, a paladin just never gets in those pinches in the first place.
yeah,
If you're playing correctly, and like we see this from in PC, this becomes the case. The warriors were tried and tested through classic, through vanilla. They went on to DBC, and because even in progression scenarios where you're basically teetering on the edge of what's quote unquote like a tankable fight, for your healers, and because obviously when they get more mana, when they get more healing power, they're basically putting out more heals and all that. So then it just comes to a game of stamina stacking, which is what retail essentially is now. But like in terms of like TBC, like we see that like the Paladin and the Druid tanks were the go-to tanks. Come the end of TBC and come into Wrath, they like Paladin tanking just becomes absolute like face roll with what's it called again? It's based on possibility that like we if we got one shot or if we died, we come back with 20% health, 20% mana. As like we could not be one shot essentially, which is amazing time for protection paladin. But yeah, like in terms of like the what's happening in classic now, at least I want to like I want I kind of want to do two things at the moment. I want to firstly, do I want to go into a private server community and see what the main hype is about? And the second thing is, do I make a shaman tank now just to do Kevin Jordan proud?
Right.
But another thing as well is I forgot to introduce Metaluck there as well. This is Metaluck. If you want to give yourself an introduction there, Metaluck.
Yeah, well, my paladin that I play, my protection paladin is kosher, so you can call me kosher too. My channel on YouTube is Metaluck, and I started it, so I don't know, like 2 or 3 years ago, and the whole reason I started it and was inspired to play protection paladin was from Killerduki's videos, because I was dabbling with protection on the private servers, and then saw his videos, and when Classic was announced, I was just like, I'm gonna go for Protection Paladin and try and tank in raids, through all of the content, and it's worked out. I mean, it's been a lot easier than people would think. All the mechanics are there for the bosses that you need to tank, and you really don't have to rely on taunt as much as you would think. All the mechanics are already there for threat to do the swaps. So it's just been a lot easier than people would think. And I got to do some of the Four Horsemen last night, and it's been just a lot easier than everybody made it out to be. Everybody makes it out to be this impossible fight, and it's actually very simple for paladins to do. So
Yeah, actually, I was expecting the people to be a little sad when the Crash League released. Even that I already explained that in one of my podcasts, I remember, or my stream videos I posted on YouTube the days before Classic released, when I said clearly that Classic isn't going to be that hard compared to the private servers, but it will be much more polished and it will be really nice. Unfortunately, the small issues which Blizzard created there destroyed this feeling of vanilla, but yeah, technically it was everything the same except the phasing, which was terrible for Blizzard to do that mistake. Outside to that, I was telling the people that everything will be much easier. Like in bosses in a classic had a much lesser are doing much lesser damage than compared to private servers. In private servers, you have 200% more health point, or even more than that, on the mobs and bosses, and you have like nearly 100% damage increased by the mobs and bosses, and that makes a huge difference in terms of gearing, surviving, class balance, and everything around. Which means the class balance in private servers was broken due to the modifications of the private servers they did, and all those bugs which they had unknowingly compared to the classic. Like you see, the defense cap is much lower requirement compared to the private servers, and
There is no requirements for defense cap in classic killer. Like honestly, it's literally that easy. Do you get what I mean? Like from from my point of view, it's like classic is like like I said, like in terms of like once you change the damage values and the health values, on the mobs, that vastly changes what is meta, quote unquote, like meta, and what's the most effective way. Like these first runs and like in terms of progress and all that, like these strategies completely shift on a dime if they're doing a private server max compared to a normal max. Now I've never played private servers, but like from from what you're saying, like if a boss is hitting twice as hard, so I mean you cannot take a crit. You die if you take a crit, which means a warrior cannot like will like the warrior tanking will be a lot more skillful because you have to keep shield block up as well as keeping that mitigation up as well as keeping the threat up. Whereas the paladin tank, if they still have the blessing threat, which should be on the private servers but isn't, because it is a game mechanic, like then you're kind of saying like the same standard that I painted before, where like you don't have to spam the blessings as much. You don't like my build, like the shotgun build. You'd be taking yourself at your own risk, kind of thing. In terms of like the kind of what is it the mitigation risks I take
yeah,
to put it one way, But like I got like I've seen like your footage and anyone else who's seen your footage as well. It's like you have the like that typical kind of like the 440 dev cap and all that. So it's like that's why I always point to you and I say it's like, listen, you have to listen to Killerduki first because you cannot be a tank first without surviving. Like that is the main. Like you have to give your healers a somewhat like like decent grace period, which is like anywhere between 2 to 3 seconds, where you have enough stamina to take that damage, which could be an auto attack or two. And if they're crit, then you're talking about 4 auto attacks essentially. Obviously, if you reduce the crits, that takes it down to 2, and then crushing blows, you put it up to 3. Um, but in that scenario, you're looking at like that's the base case, and then you like your stamina is how big is the damage value you can take, armor and all that kind of mitigates it as well. But I'm curious though, like in terms of like the way you build the, or again like Kosher, if you want to kind of if you want to take this one, but in terms of like defensively, when you're looking at like the Paladin, or like as the protection Paladin, like do you think it's worth going for the 104 defensive, the what is it, the mitigation cap, is it? Is that what's referred to? It's like 104.2% or something like that, isn't it?
No, you don't really need it. It's 102.4 or something like that. Doesn't matter if we are 1% less or more. It's almost there. Uh, Basically, I was always like against this mitigation cap because it was pointless. Not only in classic right now it's pointless, but also in the private servers was pointless. In the private servers, in order to achieve that kind of mitigation cap, you had to hit crit, which is like 200% 200 percentage of the damage of the normal damage, unlike crushing blows, which are only 150
Yeah.
percentage. And especially in the classic now, the damage is just a joke. In order to care about mitigation cap, all you care right now is more stamina, more armor to get the less damage reduction, and let's say
Yeah.
soft defense cap right now. But
Right.
yeah, but there are things like I already spoke last time with you, Tareyak. You have as a paladin a lot of different type of gear wise, spec wise, in order to do depend on what fight. What I'm playing right now in standard spec and the way of gearing I play is the defense cap with defense gear, not only because of surviving regarding the mobs around and average fights, but also because I hate honestly to get dazed. So I want to run
Yeah.
fast, 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 fast,
Yeah,
fast.
I
Yeah,
remember you mentioning that about not getting dazed in the AQ for trash and stuff
But
on private servers.
that's one of the like the hidden like things I love about like classic or like that game design philosophy is like there's all these like hidden gems. So it's like at the moment I don't have my defense gear in my bags. So like, when I'm running through mobs and all that, I'm just like my defense gear is in the bank because it's like you said, Killer. It's literally just like stack a load of armor, stack a load of tier 2 and tier 2.5, get a few spell power trinkets, and whack away. Do you know what I mean? Just keep your seal up and just spam blessings, and that gets you most of the way through AQ at least. Do you know what I mean? When it
Yeah.
comes to twin imps and patchwork, like patchwork, man, patchwork gets ridiculous.
Patchwork
But
for sure. Like Nax is kind of the only raid where mitigation has been an issue. Like, Patchwork for sure. Lotheb's good, and my guild's just at the Four Horsemen right now, so we haven't done Saffron, but I hear Saffron hits really hard too. So those are the only fights that really seem like you have to have mitigation gear in Classic. Everything leading up to Nax has just been kind of a joke how it hits. You can just go full threat gear on pretty much everything leading up to Nax.
when you speak about patchwork, you say that you have mana issues, right? Can you elaborate more about it? Because I haven't played a classic. I had some real life issues that I had to solve, and this corona put some oil on the fire. That's why I couldn't play a lot.
There's no seal stacking, so the judgment of wisdom
That I
is
know.
is,
That I
is
know. That I know.
yeah, it's a bit scuffed on that front. Oh, sorry, Kosher, if you want to answer, because I don't know your setup, because I'm holy.
Oh, what about Mantle and Patchwork? Or
Yeah,
yeah, I usually just I would do Seal of Wisdom and use Seal of Wisdom on my weapon too. Mana oil and Mage Blood Potion. Anything for mana regen and stuff like that. Um, but we have a Shadow Priest too, and there's a lot of different dots up there. So sometimes we don't have Seal of Wisdom up all the time. And but I mean, mana hasn't been too much of an issue on Patchwork for me. And the Hateful Strikes, if you're tanking the Hateful Strikes, they generate a threat for you, so you don't have to burn through as much mana. But I do need more mitigation on my main Paladin that I'm playing. There's a couple pieces from AQ that I needed to drop, like the shoulders from Fenkris. I would like to have them on him for the extra stamina.
Alright, for Patchwork, basically you don't need mitigation, you need armor and stamina. That's the most important there. Mitigation
Right.
is just top on that. On a Patchwork, I don't know, maybe in Classic it gives you some nice amount of threat, the Hateful Strikes, not like in the private server.
it's 25%, and like that's been kind of like a problem, or what people's been kind of finding an issue on that fight. I find is that like the off tanks will chase too high on the threat. The guys who are soaking the hatefuls, they'll basically pull threat for a second, and then the main tank, whoever's main tanking them, will get hateful as well. So I think if you check my logs, like that happened to me in both fights. I think where I made it on the first fight up to like 93%, and the fight this week I think I made it to like 97. I made it through to like halfway through the end in rage phase, and then I died purely because I didn't pop a flask before the fight. So like I was
Right.
like, but that goes to show you in terms of what Killerduki is saying. It's like you want a holy paladin pop lay on hands to you before the fight, literally before pull, pop a stone shield before the pull, and then you're going in 2 minutes into the fight, you're popping your stone shield and then your own lay on hands, because you should be next near out of mana and you should be going into your seals and just trying to go into your mana regen phase essentially. But for me personally on that fight, Killer, like it's Patrick puts you in an awkward position because the whole kind of like lay on hands trick, it's like that puts you at 75% mitigation, which is what most warriors are outputting even with their shield wall and all that. So like during the range phase, yeah, they'll take less damage, but through the course of the fight I'm mitigating more damage even though I'm a holy spec. But yeah, Patrick just puts you in an awkward fight because you never have that option of, oh, let me just get a mana potion here to prevent one of the off tanks going over the threshold cap and pulling aggro, and then I get hateful kind of thing, do you know what I mean?
Well, in my view, you should not use Seal of Wisdom. Instead, you should use Judgment of Wisdom and Seal of Righteousness there for some extra threat if you play that way, and rely more on exorcisms instead of consecrations. It will, on the long term, it will provide you a lot more threat if you spam less consecration and do more of exorcisms. And at the same time, you should use demonic runes, which is normal that you have to rely on those, and use them anytime your mana go a little lower. You don't have to waste all your mana before you use demonic rune. Meanwhile, the cooldown will be ready there for you. And unless you have a surviving issue, you want to use also mana potion in the same way as you use demonic runes. So depend. But if you have a surviving issues where you need to rely more on armor and stamina, because Hateful Strike is all about armor and stamina, nothing else. Okay, dodge parry helps too, but you don't have to rely on those. You want to rely more on armor and stamina. And
100%.
yeah.
Because like even from pure perspective, like stone shields are like they're through the roof on my server at least in terms of prices, because like that's how Fury proc gets away with not wearing a shield. Do you know what I mean? Like people rip on me because, or at least in my guild anyway, they rip on me for being a paper tank because in my full threat set, I'm wearing a Bloodvine chest purely because it gives 2% spell hit. But that's cloth. But like that's like I think it's 750 armor loss from what the let's say the tier 2 or tier 2.5. I think it's like 750 armor. But they'll gladly see a warrior take off a shield, which is 3000 armor. I'm looking at that kind of saying that's a 2k armor difference. Do you know what I mean? The warrior's like taking more armor off to do this spec. Do you know what I mean? But like from my perspective, it's like I'm in two ways about the Patrick fight. Honestly, like I said, it's like, do I just kind of stack more mitigation so if I do get hateful, I can at least like I'm already at armor cap, so like I'm thinking, do I put more kind of like mitigation to try and dodge and block and parry more, or do I just go straight into it? Like I'm just gonna go like get the armor cap, but go as threat heavy as possible, so I'll never get hateful. Like that's the two ways I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, heavy on armor and stamina is more important than avoidance there. Block won't work against the hateful strike, I think, but touch and parry will work. But touch and parry are not that efficient against patchwork. Anytime hateful will land successfully on you, it's a dead end where you possibly could die and destroy everything. But if you focus on more stamina and armor, of course you will get the higher damage overall, but meanwhile the healers are going to be able to predict the damage you get, and it will be much easier for them to top you up before the next hateful strike happen even.
Yeah, having the improved lay on hands, it's pretty big for that fight. And the stone shield with both of them, I'm like almost at armor cap. I got like 16k, and then blood pack from a warlock would help out a lot too.
But I mean,
The stamina.
if you get to 8k armor unbuffed, 8k armor unbuffed, which is essentially just making sure that you're wearing like I'd say like how much like base armor would you have without devotion or at the moment, kosher?
I'm at like 10, 10.5, something like that. And I think that's with Devo.
So yeah, we'll call it like 9, almost 10k. The guts of 10k essentially. When I'm in my full threat set, I think I'm just over 8k, probably 8.5k if I get the shield off KT. But if you're at 8k armor unbuffed with Devo, that's another the guts of 1,000 or with the improved Devo or right. You're sitting at like at least 10k there. But like when you factor in that if you have two priests healing you, that's inspiration up almost 100% of the time, which is 25% of your base armor plus the 35% of your off the lay on hands, right? So that's the guts of like 5k armor right there. Plus the stone shield is 7k. So you're already hitting 10k pretty much unbuffed. Plus the 7k from just those buffs alone, no mitigation, no nothing. Like you're all you're wearing is just plate essentially with blank stats, just on the armor, and this is how important armor is. If you're at that 75%, you're basically like a bear druid. You're taking significantly more reduced damage. So much so that even if a warrior is at 11k armor, which is only a 6k armor difference, and like this is like usually a Fury Prot warrior is sitting at like without a shield. I mean, you're talking about like at least 5 or 6k armor, at least. Like, do you know what I mean? But if they're sitting at 11k, which is another 5,000 armor for them, you're still taking 50% reduced damage than what they'd be taking. And that's a 66% to 75% change in the mitigation.
Have you ever guys seen my during the classic release? Have you ever seen my newest guide there for the specs that you have to chase around for which kind of spec is better and which kind of spec is for more casual players? For instance, I have made a video with a guide regarding the two specs, one for the casual and average tanking spec, which you see ordinary everywhere in a classic and before that, and a threat spec which included also improved lay on hand on that, which was more based on professionally skilled paladin who know his job, and at the same time he had a cooldown which I refer to improved lay on hand, where you can enjoy in the surviving on the bosses like this, and where parry I put there as the last choice, since since I knew that the classic damage income is not going to be compared to the private servers, and that's why I made that video there, which I was referring why it is better that spec. And honestly, it was a little funny for me. I had a lot of backfire regarding that spec I shown. Like, oh, everyone was against me because I put improved Leon hand there instead of parry, and so on and so on. People didn't basically expect that the classic will be much easier to tank compared to the private server, and the reason I put that on the bottom list of priorities.
Man, like it's kind of ridiculous, like where people are just getting that one mentality where it's like, this is how a warrior does it, ergo that everyone has to do it. Like, but what about a druid? Druids are just weird, man. They're furries. Fuck them. Do you know what I mean? And then they go on to the paladins, and they try to play a paladin just like a warrior, and you're just like, you're taking the beauty. Like, that's why I hate a retail paladin now, because it's just like you're a warrior you're a glowing warrior essentially. Do you know what I mean? But a warrior does more healing for some reason. Someone tell me why, I don't know. But like, from my perspective, it's kind of like, it's a no-brainer if you kind of like read past that, because I think like a lot of people just kind of like, they read the first line and say, okay, right, that's the effect, and then they just run with it like that. But like I said, like a skill paladin who actually just reads through all the toolkit, what are all my options here? Like, that's including, like, in terms of like, we can talk about like bubble management as well as another skill, whereby, and like holy paladins have the skill innately just from doing PvP. You'll see it where it's like they're able to manipulate a situation where, for example, in twos, especially in TVC, when you'll see in the arena, you'll see an elemental shaman and a shockadon, because the elemental shaman will put down a grounding totem, meaning all CC and magic effects, the first magic hit, first cast is null and void, so they're immune to magic, and then a paladin can bop them so they're immune to physical. So the shaman and the paladin can both pop their bubbles essentially. And then how that translates to what we're doing, and all three of us like understand this as well, is that like you can use your bubble to basically cleanse yourself of 99% of all debuffs in the game, which is warriors can't do that. So this is a 5-minute cooldown where you just basically get rid of all debuffs. You have improved lay on hands, which when you spec into it, and it's what they say, oh, you're just reducing the cooldown of lay on hands. Like, no, I'm picking it because it's 30% increased armor. That's like, at this stage in the game, it's for Metaluck, it's over 3k. So that's a stone shield and a half worth of armor. Do you know what I mean? And we already talked about 75%
it's like a world buff
66.
worth of armor. You know, it's like a world buff in itself if you have that 2 minutes of lay on hands on.
Man, it's a broken cooldown. And like, when I look at the fact that the Horde don't have paladins, I'm like, how are they holding threat without salvation? How are their fury prots going in without like shields, with no stone shields either, basically, and still tanking the boss? And you're looking at like the figures, the straight mathematics that Killerduki spitting with me. Like, you're basically saying like, like, at what point are you going to say that like, oh no, like the private service, like it's basically like, you know, a sandbox thing? It's like, no, like it's a way tougher environment. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, you ask any of the private server guys like who are tanking in classic, especially on the warriors, like do you have to rely on consumables as much? They'd be like, nah, I'm Gucci, bro. You know, like from them, it's like at the top level, they're like, it's like, I can tank most of the molten core there with stone shields, probably Blackwing there as well. Was one of the warriors in our guild at least. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, at that stage, you're kind of looking at it from the point of view of like, classic is kind of like easier on that front. I think definitely molten core and Blackwing Lair are a lot kind of like, oh wait, like they're not as kind of like highly tuned as Nax, because Nax is a complete game changer, and we can see that from the logs. Like with Blackwing Lair and molten core, is like within the first week realistically of Blackwing Lair, is like most guilds across the world have killed Nefarian. Easy clap. I think AQ, you've seen a bit of like, it was between Twin Emperors, which were Warlock tanks, and Facidus with again, if you had a Paladin in AQ, Facidus was the joke. Simple as.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
for
And
sure.
like Warriors struggle in that fight. Like that was considered one of the hardest fight, quote unquote. I wonder why. Because everyone was running just pure like bears and warriors. No one ran a Paladin tank. But the guilds that did were like, oh, free femur. You know what I mean? So like their casters love the fact that like all the casters in my guild. Cause I had to my original guild disband and all that. Like not my guild, the original guild I was part of. I started running with Moncorno and stuff. That's when I got the #1 with. But then obviously with that, like I was with a few guilds in and out, and then eventually I'm with the guild that I am now. But like at first they were kind of really skeptical because it was like, oh, Paladin tank kind of stuff, and then on Ragnaros I literally just kind of say, you're like I just spammed the blessings for the crack. I tanked Ragnaros without my chest on just to kind of prove a point, so to say. With the Warriors kind of saying it's like they were trying to taunt, but like my threat was just so insane, like because everyone would be on their alt Warriors, so it'd be like after 14, 15, I'd just be standing there kind of going, I can wear 2 to 250 fire resist and still spam blessings for over 2-3 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And there's not a thing that like Ragnaros can do essentially, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really easy to hold threat on Rag with the blessing spam. Like it's a lot of the threat drop mechanics. Like you mentioned, Viscidus. A lot of people think that you want taunts for stuff like that when the threat drop happens, but Viscidus is immune to taunt, like a lot of the bosses in the game, and when they drop threat like that, the blessing spam is just a really good way to just pick them up instantly. So that's why Viscidus was just so easy for us, and Noth and Naxxramas has been that way. When he teleports and resets, and while he's up on the balcony, I still generate threat on him. So when he comes down, I'm like 20, 30k above everybody else. So it's really cool some of the stuff you can do with it.
Yeah, man, like the blessed threat's insane. But let me ask a question, like honestly, 100% straight. And it might be a weird question to ask. Killer, I want to ask you first. Why do you think people are constantly, even now, with all the videos that come out with the blessing threat and what Meta's been doing, the video that I have and all that kind of thing? Why do you think people are still in that mindset? Because we've seen it, like you and I, we can check that post. Do you know what I mean? But like, there's still people who are just kind of like, there's still no reason to bring a Paladin. There is absolutely no reason to bring a Paladin, because Warriors just, or whatever. Like, why do you think that people are still stuck in that kind of like, quote unquote, like, kind of like the meta slave mentality, essentially, with Warrior tanks?
Uh, People will get changes within time. That's what I expect now, especially that you have created that video. Everything will get changed, but unfortunately we have to see the future from now on. Right now you will have like 60-70% of the people who are still skeptical to prot Paladin tank or whatever Paladin tank, unlike in the past when you had 99% of the people skeptical for against a Paladin tank. Right now it develops this much open propaganda. I mean propaganda because all of the videos until today you had was heavily against Prot Paladin. All the guys you have seen was heavily against Prot Paladin, and they still exist. That's why the skepticism from the people for Protection Paladin is still so high. That's why you need to spread sort of friendly propaganda where you show things differently, that everything is completely different compared to the past.
So you're saying basically it's just more kind of like just that image that people just still have from vanilla WoW, essentially.
Yeah, and especially that the most helpful websites doesn't even represent us, mate. You have Wowhead or whatever it's called. You have Blizzard forums, which are the most visited, together with Wowhead, and then you have WowWiki or Wikipedia, whatever, which has the most terrible explanation regarding protection paladins, and majority of the people, anytime they want to see something about it, they go there. That's why they get these terrible images against us.
Hmm.
That's why
Uh,
I would like, especially that you, Tareyak, did amazing and fantastic job, where I was always dreaming to show to the people you have done that, and I'm so grateful for that. We just need now to begin working out to have paladins finally speak, to
Yeah.
finally
100%.
make a guide, to openly give evidence, not only guides but evidence within the guides, to
Hmm.
change the population mind.
100%, and like I said, it's a team effort. Like it's like it's been basically kind of like I think like us three who've been like been the main pioneers because like this what's his face I think it was like ETCC. He's in that guild. Like he was kind of like doing a couple of Paladin videos, and then he was like, "Nah, bro, I'm playing my warrior classic." But Kosher, why do you think it is that like people? Do you think it's the same thing where it's just the like that kind of like they're stuck in kind of like they're like our parents essentially. They're stuck in the old ways. Do you know what I mean? They need to realize the new things.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think it takes, the footage is really going to change people after a while. There's going to be a lot more videos of paladins tanking the Four Horsemen coming out, and people are going to, realize that. What I stress so much is that you don't need taunt for any fight in the entire game. You can go through the entire game without taunting a boss one time. Taunt just kind of just doesn't it just gets around the mechanics of the fight that you're supposed to do. Like every taunt swap fight that people do has a mechanic that drops threat for you, if it's wing buffet or the the stacks from the Four Horsemen and stuff like that. So there's a way around it, and all the boss fights were made for all of the tanks to be intended to tank.
Yeah. Like I understand. Like it's that whole kind of thing of like
In my
not
view,
only is it propaganda, but it's the whole kind of like, well, listen, like when the tactics were first written, when the book was first written, let's say when Kungan was first doing it, or whatever the community wants to give credit to. Like this is how it was done, and because it was done this way, ergo, why fix something that's not broken as well? Correct?
yeah, and also one more thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
the way how I used to always explain to when I was in arguing within all the paladin haters, trolls, and whatever, when it was about the question of paladins tanks, I've been always saying World of Warcraft Classic especially is built up and made for a team play. You have group of people, 40 people in the raid. You have a team play. You have to play with each other, not to be solo player like the warrior tanks mentalities used to, and still there are so many of them doing that. But with our approach forward and with the population accepting paladin tanks more, the team spirit within the raids are going to be increased, because paladins build up within that, and when people communicate each other more, when they cooperate and work each other more, unlike the solo tank spam town swap easy mechanic where you don't give a damn about what people do and think, it is going to make this game much more fun and much better quality compared to how it used to be toxic until now. It's not just about
Yeah.
the paladin tanks, it's about overall hybrid specs.
Yeah. From my point of view, I think you both hit the nail on the head where it's definitely a mentality thing. Um, but then you have to ask the question like how'd you break the mentality? I think that like there is kind of like like I said, there is kind of like people who are kind of stuck in the old ways and they never want to change. But for me personally, like I went for like I've been on the call with the maximum effort lads on the alliance and in Mograine and the top guilds, like because I think like Mograine's kind of we're not like we're never top, but we're kind of we're third or fourth. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, there's always like a Mulgrim player like somewhere in the logs. But like they just out straight kind of say it's like, what? This is the main question they said. It's like, why should we bring a Paladin? Because like they said that they seen the threat footage and all this stuff. But their main question for me is was came down to like, why should we bring a Paladin tank when a warrior tank does more damage? Like out straight, it's just more output, and they have all these kind of like tools. Let's say if shit goes wrong, um, and I think out straight it's a great question to ask, but I think it's again it's that mentality where it's like, hang on a second, who said that you're sacrificing DPS? Because a Fury warrior does more damage than a Fury Pro, and especially if you're using my build, you're Holy Paladin anyway, so you just get a bit more healing gear than what I'm
And
using. You know what I mean? So it's like you're just sacrificing one healer, which is easy enough rather than sacrificing one DPS. So you're technically getting more DPS output for using a Paladin tank. I think once you realize that, like that's the mic drop moment. That's the bombshell where all these kind of like skills like progress and all this stuff like they snap and they realize and they go, hang on, that's like taking like basically you're adding DPS because your healer's now going to be doing damage, and then you're adding like that's a double benefit because now your warrior tank essentially can go DPS because the paladin laying hands and stone shield that's 7k armor. Do you know what I mean? With the getting a couple of priesty on you, and the horde doesn't have access to this, so it's only really aligned skills that are able to that because again like ideally I'd love if this call was like had 20 people on it. It was one of those kind of like big kind of thing where all the big streamers meet and all that stuff, but it's like real talk, it's like we're the only guys that have even kind of like maybe there's like one or two other guys that are like are seriously kind of like analyzing the class and kind of looking at it kind of like where can we improve, where can we keep going, like, you know what I mean? Because it's we're still writing like the like my guide I'd still kind of probably make a few alterations to it. Whereas like it's stuck in the ways like if you're playing a human warrior, this is the build you go with. Playing a horde warrior, this is what you go with. Do you know what I mean? And it's that straight, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, when we speak about people mentality today, when you go to the private servers, in instance, when you go to Elysium, you will see that people are so much different compared to how they used to be back in the days. They still have this conservative questions and feelings about the protection paladins, especially that the private servers still have the same or similar issues they had before, where you can't easy tank as a protection paladin unlike you can do in a classic. But people are much more accepting them compared to the past now that they see what the paladins are capable of. And you know, I always wish to play protection paladin, not only because I enjoy, but also because I wanted to show how every single raid boss, every single raid work with them, and all those stuff. But since you, Tareyak, can do that job, I believe that you can show everything if it's given a chance to you, and I would love to see all of the raids tanked by you, even on the prot or holy spec or whatever kind of spec as a paladin tank. When you will be able to do that, uh, my next goal might be to reroll red paladin and finally expose how their capabilities are also, not because I enjoy red compared to how I used to enjoy prot, but because I would like to show and to bombshell that stigma that the red paladins are way much lesser damage compared to other classes. Of course they are not the best or the top, but they are still significant and strong. But as a protection have a complexity of how boss mechanics work, red have a complex within the gearing wise, enchanting wise, talent wise, and stuff like that that's why you see people confused even for a rat today. Uh, Unfortunately, back in the days we had some small misunderstanding with Teloras when we ended up, thanks to the trolls like Holy Frog and all those who disagreed highly against Protection Paladin with me when they were arguing. I was also annoyed because I couldn't express myself. Anytime I was trying to say something, I was ending up with a huge bombshell on me, and I felt like I'm under heavy pressure from those people who should represent paladins was actually my biggest, uh, in a way, not enemies, but haters of what I'm trying to do, and was doing everything possible to denigrate, not cooperate with me, or even try to disapprove me on every aspect. Since my time and resources was limited, I wasn't able to even show them stuff, and that's why this kind of pressure exploded a bit and ended up with me and Teloras a little arguing. But I like that guy still. I know mistake happens sometime and it's a common sense. But I really would love to cooperate with him still with the retribution stuff and how the playstyle is. I know he's in favor of paladins and the stacking of crowd pummelers, which I was wrong, and in a way I was wrong on what I was saying, but my mindset was that people should have been working out to pressure on Blizzard to fix this kind of sort of legal abuses in a way where you know this mechanic will be huge difference for you, and it's not in a way that you can get level 1 or level 34 weapon in order to successfully be the top in Nax. It makes no sense to be that way. Unfortunately, legal or not, Blizzard did accept it. I don't know for what reason. Did accept that and allowed them to use it as legal, which make a huge difference within the Druid community and the Paladin community. I know they got a lot of benefits, and I disagreed with that kind of cheating mechanic. In my view, it was just my view, nothing in reality. It was not cheating in reality, but in my view it was sort of abusing of that mechanic. But anyway, time passed, so you can't change it now.
Yeah, like I mean, I guess like I said, it's kind of like taking that from let's say that gameplay style and kind of expanding on it and saying, and hang on a second, right? Rather than giving the paladins just crit for agility, give them also haste. So then we're giving them the same gear, they can play the same game the same way, but like one paladin can favor the attack power, one paladin can favor the spell power. Do you know what I mean? But again, like that kind of gets into like the whole kind of like, are we changing, are we not changing? But again, with private servers, like the line is kind of, it's wherever you want to put it almost. But again, like I said, like I've experienced, like to your point in terms of like the toxicity that we face from what should be our own brothers kind of thing. Like from my point of view, like I shouldn't be here. Like, do you know what I mean? I shouldn't be getting the world first. Because it should be done by like the likes of S-Fand or any other paladins that are making videos in that Paladin Discord. But you're seeing like it's not the first time that people have fallen out. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like with the stuff that went down with the other guy between us, where we have the shared experience, so to say. It's like, from my point of view, it's kind of like, at least at this stage, like we have the footage there where it's kind of, if you take the whole picture into a whole, it's like we're doing the class just to see the way, because the more kind of like options that are out there, the more kind of different ways to look at it, different ways to break it down. Because again, the beautiful thing about being a hybrid spec is that it's like similar to a druid. It's like there's three different trees, but there's four different roles. If you get me, and that's I think you can explore that more in kind of like TBC with like the gearing options because they go balls to the wall in terms of like gems and all that kind of change the whole game. But like with like what you're saying there, it's kind of like we just have to kind of like push on. You know what I mean? Like again, like from our point of view, it's like meta is or kosher is like hype as fuck for next week because he's got the taste for it now, and he's about to sink Four Horsemen and get another video out there for Paladin Tanking Four Horsemen. You know what I mean? So it's like that added on effect where it's like we're doing this easy clap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been waiting so long to get to the Four Horsemen fight, and we finally did last night, and so it's awesome to be able to finally tank it. And we didn't down it, but we only got 3 attempts at the end of the raid. This is our first night getting to the Four Horsemen, but it was a lot easier to tank it as a paladin than people think. And we should probably go over like how we do it as a paladin, which is not any different than any other tank, but I know people are still confused of how it goes on and stuff. But I mean, the taunt, you don't need the taunt. You could do the entire fight with no tank taunting any of the horses.
Yeah, mate. I really wished to somehow turn the time back and provide the videos and everything, all of our discussion and all those stuff back in the days when this argument was popular, unlike today. Especially, I'm sad that the Barons chat is completely changed, and the people who were being discussing so much there regarding Paladin tanks hating me on there when we had all those arguments back and forth. Uh, so we
But I mean, I think it's the start of a new chapter.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It's like we face the adversity to a large extent. Do you know what I mean? Like us three, like have taken on a huge kind of like burden or role in terms of trying to push this dynamic. But the journey doesn't end here because realistically, like TBC is all but announced. So there's that whole kind of dynamic, and then if they're going to do TPC, it's like you have to do artists. Do you know what I mean? So it's like at that stage, you're kind of looking at like years more worth of content to go through. But even at that stage, I want to hear your opinion on this as well. As like in terms of like classic, do you think that classic is going to be able to maintain that kind of still kind of like instilled kind of community sense of the professor community killer?
I really would love to stay as a classic that way, and I think it will be really great for at least next 10 years. It will be great community there in the classic if it remains as a classic and not evolve into something else. If they make it a separate server, yes. But one thing is now is funny for me that I would like to represent. A long time ago, when I was playing the private server communities, I always wished and dreamed to have finally this classic or okay vanilla we used to call original Blizzard server, and that's why all the people was asking, in order to show what paladins are capable of. But today I really hate if TBC is actually released. Be- Not because I hate on TBC. I honestly had my best days and my honeymoon there in TBC. So I really hate today TBC to be released because with the today intellectual mentality of the people, TBC will be so damn easy. It will be skyrocketing, and the paladins there are going to be a lot much better than you ever thought, even that you knew and that you know right now that in TBC paladins are great. You will see how much more greater they are there compared to how you believe even now. And Yeah.
100%, man. Like I've looked at the spell power coefficients and stuff like that. Like as kosher, I've been kind of saying to him, I'm almost spoiling myself with kind of like the TBC gems, but like whereas classic, where they kind of they didn't really know what was the going to be the final end result. Like they had most of the stuff worked out, but in terms of like the paladin and like the shams and all that stuff, it was kind of up in the air whether or not they were going to be kind of truly viable or not. And the elemental shaman kind of like stepped out of the closet and kind of said, like, at least for like in terms of AQ and all that, it's like daddy's home kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? But with the world boss, it kind of like it changes the game in too much of a way, and like leaning towards like melee friendly, like especially in terms of the hunters. Even though they get that buff of getting the attack power now, it's kind of like 300 or 400 attack power, and they're not getting close to the warriors, but and the rogues. But from the point of view of TBC, that goes out the window. It gets turned on its head almost. Do you know what I mean? So it's like from the point of view of like what you're saying. It's like the paladin. It's like, yeah, like the perceived kind of thing is like, yeah, paladin. You want them for their heroic grind, so you can get into Karazhan, all that kind of stuff. And they're great farmers and all that kind of thing. But it's like kind of like to the next level, because there's going to be the world first race TBC as well, and it's going to be that whole kind of like dynamic where it's like paladins are just kind of insane, like warriors can't, like just for maybe the rage are basically carrying them at that stage, because it's just like this whole kind of like caster friendly meta kind of thing. Um, but at that dynamic, like I said, it's like that's like I think that's the chapter that we're on. It's like we face the adversity. We're at this transition period now where it's like the break almost. It's like calm before the storm, and then come TBC when kosher is the Thunder Fury, and maybe at that stage, who knows, you might have your Thunder Fury.
I wish. That's never gonna happen. Like over a year of farming bindings never dropped. So
But think
I,
about think about this, kosher, right? Overnight, when you get that Thunder Fury, not if, when you get that Thunder Fury, um, like overnight on TBC, you go from being like an absolute like people just like in the city, like, and you'll see once you get the Thunder Fury, people whisper you and they'll be flaming you and kind of like, especially warriors and rogues. It's always warriors and rogues actually. They whisper you and kind of say, "How'd you get that? Did you ninja that? All that kind of stuff." Um, but you'll see, man, like in TBC, you're literally like there'll be a group of 4 warriors. They're like, "Yeah, we want you to tank. We'll bandage you. You're that good as a tank." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like warriors will even be kind of like stepping over themselves to play, which you could, especially when you have the Thunder Fury, because it's like Thunder Fury's best in slot till Sunwell basically almost with the threat output for AOE. Um, so like in terms of that, like and like I said, the spell power coefficients, like consecration goes from 33% to almost 100%. That's triple spell power scaling. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, we definitely get a big buff in TBC, but that's what kind of discourages me from playing Paladin tank. I don't know, like just because they give us so many buffs. I don't know. I had one friend that told me I couldn't tank Illidan as a Paladin tank, and that did make me want to kind of go back. But I was baffled by that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure a Paladin could tank Illidan no problem.
But like that's what I'm kind of like saying in terms of like that's the kind of the holdover point. Because at the moment it's like people are kind of like they're raid logging or whatever for classic, whereas like you're looking at the content in terms of like kind of guide content and stuff, kind of like really kind of like laying out like the let's say like the rundown of, let's say, a spec, or kind of like trying to show things off in like real raid environments. It's pretty hard to do because you get one shot at a week. Do you know what I mean? Because everything's going down. There's no kind of like, oh, like let's intentionally wipe so coach can do his video. Do you know what I mean? So it's like from or like Tareyak do his video kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? From our point, it's like you got to be able to do the task kind of first time, and it's very difficult to find that footage. But in the down periods of kind of like we're classic, I'm in the same boat as Killer. Like I think classic is still going to be a thing like in 10 years. Do you know what I mean? Same thing as
Yeah,
Super Mario Kart was, or Super Mario Brothers, or yeah, is still played by people around the
there'll
world.
still be servers even if it's private servers. I mean, if I had to replay through Classic again, I'd probably go Shaman Tank and
Yeah,
tank through a
same.
game like that.
I think that's gonna be my side project until DBC.
Yeah, I mean it's totally doable. I mean, Caperfin has a whole bunch of guides on it, but I mean, all what we've learned from being Paladin tanks. I mean, it's like not much different. And
True.
there's definitely differences, but like ball strategy wise, like the Four Horsemen, like you could do the Four Horsemen as a shaman just as easily. Like it's no big deal.
Pretty much, yeah. Like just the one thing I'm thinking about Shaman is just how are they getting like the armor is a huge thing. Like you know what I mean. It's like the keep
True.
quoting Killerduki's wisdom. It's like armor and stamina is the two main stats. Forget about this avoidance nonsense. Just focus on those two things first, and then we'll go from avoidance there. Because avoidance is it's like a proc essentially. It's pure RNG. Which I mean, it's like yeah, you can manipulate it so it's you never take a full crushing blow and all that, but you have to have the tools to like be able to do that easily as a kind of like your defensive thing. But like tanking's also it's a two-way street because you have the threat as well as the defensives, and that's another reason why I think classic's going to still be a thing because like you don't get that kind of tanking experience in retail. Simple, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not having the improved lay on hands as a shaman uh, would make things a little tougher on some of the harder fights for sure. Well, that's what's fun about it, figuring it out and stuff.
Hundred
Um,
percent. Like they could have something in the toolkit where it's like 30%. We get 50% or something like that, or they get like something like the bear druid where it's some like ridiculous armor value, and it's like okay, right, we're going from there. That's the main kind of where that's how we're defending ourselves kind of thing. Um, and like they have that totem that's basically like the mechanical repair ball kind of thing. So in terms of the drakes, they'd automatically become best tanks because they can solo attack it.
yeah. The stone claw totem, it works just like a target dummy pretty much, and that's something I use a lot on my paladin is target dummy. So you could use stone claw plus target dummies, and it's always good for like the warriors in my raid will use their challenge and shouts for certain trash pools, and we can just throw down a target dummy. It does the same thing pretty much.
Have you had any experience with that Killerduki as well? With the target dummy?
Well, sometime, but yeah, all right. My view why this fiery talent exists as a rat, in my view, is mainly for PvP. Okay, it works for PvE, but it is mainly PvP, where you can play as a Shokadin and have a seal of command. At the same time, you get parry talent in order to defend yourself from the melees around and things like that. That's my view morely. Of course, paladins have so many specs around that you can't even imagine. So it's not a simple cake to just pick one or pick another. That makes paladin more exciting. You have more specs. It feels like you as a guy go in a club and you have like 10 girls around. Man, all of them are exciting, all of them are cute, and you have
Take
no
your
idea
pick.
which one to choose, man. You want to have all of them at the same
I
time,
love
but
that
you
analogy,
can't.
man.
Okay, Gosher?
Yeah, all right. Like there's a couple. I like how Tareyak does the Shakaden spec. I mean, it's a nice change of pace for how he does things and stuff. It's nice to watch.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, like with the protection spec, like I'd love to be protection paladin, like and just like that's why I'm leveling dwarf at the moment, so I can go full pro, have one full pro, same as you, kosher, have one full pro, have one in the shotgun
Right.
spec, because the prot tree is just so nice in terms of like boosting and kind of gold farming and all that. It's like you just make a killing. It's insane. Um, and in terms of like the whole kind of like dynamic of kind of with the extra block, kind of being able to play like, don't get me wrong, like Holy Shield is pretty nice on patchwork. It's probably auto attacking at least once a second. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're definitely getting your mana's worth for the Holy Shield and fights like patchwork per se. The extra block, it's extra mitigation. Who's going to complain? But in terms of the main reason why I kind of like was so dead set on this since like so early on, and like that's why I think I have like this was always going to be a thing. I think there was always going to be someone who's going to like push the boundary, at least in terms of like what Holy can do, because like you see so many like warriors now, especially because like with TBC around the corner, they have, like you see them with progress video as well, like they have kind of a 60 Paladin on standby just ready for TBC. But in terms of like what a Paladin can bring, what a Paladin can offer, and the fact that we have the like I said, the main case that I drew out there, where it's like realistically what I'm doing with the shotgun spec is no different to what you're doing with the protection spec, kosher, or it's basically combining what you and Killerduki would have been doing in terms of dynamic of kind of like having the rotation set up where you're trying to maximize your spell coefficients and spell power procs and looking at the wide range of kind of like consumes that you can use, and like from your kind of like the play style of like on the Farian, where you're literally trying to tank the whole world with the best spam, but being able to show the effect of like even with kind of like healing aggro and all that stuff, the Paladin, like that's how powerful that Paladin threat is, which to a degree you could say like in and of itself like it kind of solves the case of like at what stage are you kind of willing to say, right, like if you cannot do this one particular boss, you're not viable, because we can all point to a warrior and a bear and say Sidus. Do you get me? So like from our point of view, even if there is kind of, let's say, one spec that favors more on the other, or if there is one build that favors more on like even for like DPS or for healing per se, it's an interesting dynamic where you can basically get best of both worlds, where, and the case in point is like, let's say Holy, like they'll gladly give up Holy Shock for Blessing of Sanctuary, because if they do any farming in their spare time, it's legit like I have Illumination and Spell Crit, free heals, boys, let's keep going.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And you see that with the Nax, because everyone was anticipating the Paladins would fall off a cliff, and while priests are proving themselves to be like way better druids than druids are on Safarin, like it's when it comes to like patchwork and stuff like that, it's the Paladins that can just keep pumping just like the warrior, and like I said, it's like Holy Shock is not part of that. Whereas from my point of view, if you're looking at like when I first started, I was kind of saying I don't get me wrong, Killerduki, like I wasn't stalker and like that, but I seen your posts from the tavern and all that, where you're kind of you're outlining the case for prop ons, and you're just getting completely shit on for no reason. And it was like the subject was always changed, or any points that you made were always just kind of hand waved and all that. But we've shown now with the footage, it's like, no, you get 75% mitigation cap, and from there, it's like that's how you're basically playing the class. Whereas you have like other people kind of saying, oh no, if you spec like 12 or 13 items of your gear and kind of gimp yourself on mana and all that, you can get like mitigation cap per se, but you have to get crit first. It's like, okay, so I have to get crit, and then I don't receive a crit for 10 seconds. But I could just put on 440 defense gear, like Killerduki said, get defense cap, and then, do you know what I mean, go from there. I don't get crit, but you avoid crushing blows for 10 seconds after receiving a critical hit. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the different logic dynamic. that Killerduki was facing. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like from from his point of view, it's like armor and stamina. It's how the bear tanks. Do you know what I mean? Plain and simple. Let's eliminate all the fancy things and the toolkits and all that. The warriors doing all the dancing and all that. It's like let's keep things simple. Let's like already go into the fight knowing that we have the fight won. Simple as. Like all these warrior tanks are here playing checkers and Killer Dookies is there like playing chess over them. Essentially, do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, he was the only one who had any strategies for any of the taunt swap fights, like the Drakes and BWL and the Four Horsemen. Was the only person who would humor me with how to do these fights. 2 years ago when I was trying to figure it out, and it's all worked out. I mean, I went into BWL and main tanked the Drakes no problem. You just have somebody taunt it off of you, and you could do those fights with no taunts. I mean, because of the wing buffet dropping threat, and the way target dummies work for you. I mean, so
Exactly, and even with like the like Sapphire Maw with Four Horse and all that stuff, like building threat. Like once you get to this is why I value burst threat so much than threat per second, personally as a tank. Is because when is threat the most important? Usually right at the start of the pull. Once you get the pull down, like once the boss is moving, essentially, you're playing an RNG game. As a tank, you want to plant your feet and kind of like basically turn the boss into a target dummy, and let the kids play essentially. Do you know what I mean? So from my point of view, it's like if I can reliably just like burst at the 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 boss down and put him in position, then it's if I need to buff myself, or I've already arranged that, or if I need to do a mid fight, I can do that. If I lose aggro or whatever, or if the mob I'm tanking dies, then I can switch to healing, or I can go and try to get more burst threat and all that. When you're talking about like a fight where you're at like Patchwork, I was at what 200k. I think no, either my last attempt or attempt before. In order for a DPS to rip off you there, they have to do an additional 20k extra threat. So like execute spam. Okay, GG well played. I mean, I'm already there.
Right.
You know, but it's like I don't know. It's like from Killer's point of view, it's like he's doing that. He's been doing this like without all the kind of like the support that we've even had, because like we have like logs and all that to kind of like fully analyze the fight and all that, where it's like Killer, like with the amount of kind of like different kind of things that were kind of on private servers compared to what's in classic, it's like some of the tactics change, and certainly kind of like a lot of kind of like even the top end players were playing a lot safer game kind of thing, rolling into Nax at least. So from that point of view, I think there's just so much potential.
So, like, a question I did have, like, the only thing that's really confused me in Nax is the Hagen fight. Like, with his mana drain, that's the only fight where I've been like, I don't know how to get around this.
Alright,
That's a good question.
alright. I will be trying to answer that question in a perspective of, let's say, private server sense, but you can make a logic on your own later and work out with the greater blessings even there and so on. Alright, first of all, for Hagen, it's the one who you are dancing left and right?
Yes.
Alright, so basically you want to burst out all your mana for threat at the really start, and since you want to focus more on the movement, the melees are not going to do huge amount of threat, and the rangers should be always watching the KTM. That's normal, but you want to use demonic runes and mana potions there, and the boss
Right.
has this ability to mana drain you, but he's not like instantly doing that. Within a few seconds or something like that, it will do. So basically what you want to do is use all abilities to make some threat, kite, use demonic rune, use abilities immediately to spend that mana from the demonic rune, continue, but before you continue or something like that, you make sure you refresh your seal of righteousness while judgment of wisdom is on the boss, or any kind of or any kind of judgment, depend on the group. But having judgment of wisdom on boss is mandatory there, because you still do some threat with that, still mana regeneration there, thanks to blessings and so other buffs. You will at one point get to the point of having time to time enough mana for exorcism. Not always, but time to time. Okay, maybe more. I don't know what the values are on classic actually, since it's been, let's say, 14 13 years before since I have played vanilla original, so you have to experiment that on your own. And so you basically swap forth and back with the demonic rune and mana potions while kiting, and when you stay with the rangers, you don't cast anything, you let this mana regeneration flow, and you will see, you have to watch it on your own, whether the boss is still gaining the threat from the group or whether the boss is resetting. I don't quite remember, but if it is resetting during the dance phase, you just don't do anything, don't do damage, don't do spam, so your mana regeneration get regenerated from the spirit itself and buffs and so on. But if the threat still going on, you want to continue with the runes and pots, and meanwhile you can do some exorcism while running. So you have to figure it out, because I remember when the boss is standing on the spot, he doesn't do mana drain to you during that phase.
Right.
So you basically,
So you have time to regen your mana when he's doing his phase where he stands on the pedestal and stuff.
yeah, and you basically can still exorcism while running there.
Right.
So
And blessing if you want.
yeah, depend on
Um,
what will give you more threats. You have to figure it out on your own.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much what I was thinking. Just go through the major mana potions and the dark runes when you can. But that's what and a Thunder Fury would definitely help on that fight, just to have the extra proc going.
It is still
Yeah,
doable, since the seal of righteousness is like 30 seconds, and thanks to the judgment of wisdom on the boss, while you have a seal of righteousness, doesn't matter, it will still produce some amount of mana for you before it gets drained, in order to reseal or sometime exorcism, depend also on the buffs you have. And yeah, yes, Tareyak.
Right.
I think, but before Tareyak talk, I think it's about time. Time is money. Time is limit, as the goblin said. We all enjoy to have another discussions too. So I would like you two guys to give one more time, one more nice view about this, and I would love to congratulation again to Tareyak for doing that, and I would love to see you, man, doing Kel'Thuzad main tank as a paladin next time, not only for horsemen, which is the hardest. Kel'Thuzad should be your next goal, I hope, and I wish you best luck there. And for Metaluck, I know you're good and great with guys, and I would love to see some more of your
Yeah, man.
guides on YouTube, and I would love to see. So okay, Tareyak, unless I interrupted
yeah.
you.
Like you're saying there, it's just been a pleasure to have the conversation. It's been a pleasure to be on, and from my point of view, it's 100%, like in terms of like the different kind of like boss and max alone. Like we're kind of saying there, we're egging on clean, like working around that mana mechanic is going to be vital. But again, like there's plenty of logs out there. Paladin's been able to at least be picked up as tanks. Again, the logs are a bit kind of like shifty in terms of the ban things, but again, kind of always a pleasure, and it was my pleasure personally to be able to kind of to show a lot of the haters wrong, essentially.
Kosher?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. I appreciate the invitation to the Discord call and everything, and I'm totally down to talk some more. If you want to do another one, and hopefully I'll have a guide out soon on the Four Horsemen fight when my guild downs it. Hopefully next week.
And one more last thing I would like to say to you guys. My always uh, One of my goals was always to create a specific guide for every single raid boss in the game, how to play as a protection paladin or tanking paladin. Let's say, doesn't matter the spec, doesn't matter the gear. How to do any kind of fights. So you don't have to ask me how to do Hagan. You don't have to ask me how to do patchwork. But since my time is limited, resources maybe, I don't know. I would love if you guys or Metaluck, since he's great with the guys, to discuss about stuff someday, all of us together, so I can explain every single raid boss, what kind of
Yeah,
build
that
to
would be
use,
great. I'd love that.
100%, man.
and it will be amazing to have that kind of guide for people to see how things work and everything. Anyway, thanks both of you for coming, and thanks for the fans who are watching this video. I know there was some little boring stuff, some stuff which was interesting, some stuff that you already knew, some stuff that you don't, some stuff you agree or disagree. We are all humans and we love to have fun in the spec and class we play. That is our goal. We wish you the best of luck for everyone. Have amazing drinking day, have fun with girls, and have a amazing moment with the Paladins. So thanks both of
100%,
you.
bro.
Thanks both of you, and yeah,
Nice, bro. Take it easy.
good luck.
Yeah, man.